Okay, so first of all, I'm thankful that Bergen trusted me enough to even ask me to do this. When she told me the idea, the tenet that we were focusing on, it felt huge. It's such a big, important part of our well-being, I think, and of being healthy, not just ourselves, but in our families, that I think is really missing from the world, and we don't hear about it often. So this idea that we, as men and women, are powerful all alone in our own right, but that in order that we can be double powerful, I don't know, I'm sure there's a more eloquent way to say that, but more powerful together, working together, and that the fact that I have self-worth doesn't mean that you can't have self-worth, that we can both have self-worth, and from that place work together to create healthy families and healthy communities and healthy everything. So I know that this is an important idea, and I'm really hoping that that I'll be blessed to say what needs to be said today. So the reason that Bergen, well, I think one of the reasons Bergen asked me to do this was because of one of my personal experiences that I'll share a little bit about today. I think we all have experiences in our lives that bring us pain and that make us question who we are, what we believe in. And for me, that experience up to this point in my life has been with my husband in particular. So my husband and I dated in high school. We both went on missions for our church, and we both went to college, and it was like this fairy tale experience, right? Oh, you dated in high school, it's so awesome. You know, we would get that all the time. So we were married, we were together for 5 years, and then we got married. So right before our 10-year anniversary, back in 2012, my husband came to me and said that he had been struggling with a pornography addiction for, I cry every time, sorry. He'd been struggling with a pornography addiction for a while. And in his case, it started when he was 14, before we even met. And so it was something he'd never talked to anybody about. He'd never gotten help for it. And it eventually just did bleed into every part of our marriage and our life. So my husband discloses this information, and eventually we ended up we've done a lot of therapy. We both attend a non-denominational 12-step group. And all those things have been super helpful. Through this experience, I have seen a beautiful transformation, not just in ourselves, but in our marriage as well. A healing that I didn't think was possible. And I will say, a healing that does not come to all couples and to all people. So I just wanted to share a little bit about how we have found that healing. So this little handout right here is from an organization called SA Lifeline. It's a nonprofit organization that I work with. And what it just talks about really quickly is this part right here in the beginning, is what an addict, someone who has an addiction, looks like. So if the center of the addict is themselves, that is what they're paying attention to, that's the most important thing for them. And it affects them, their mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of that. And on the outside are some of the behaviors that show up. So you contrast that to what a whole healthy person looks like. In my work, we call it recovery, someone in recovery. The goal is to be connected and have God in your center. And that's the goal for all of us. This addiction just happens to be the thing that brought us here. So it obviously, having God in our center allows us to be healthy spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. And these are the behaviors that come from having God in our center. We are honest, humble, accountable, and we have willing hearts. On the inside is what happens to the spouse. So I learned about a year after I found out about my husband's addiction, I was diagnosed with PTSD, and about 73% of women whose husbands have or whose partners have a pornography addiction can be diagnosed with PTSD. It's a really big problem, and it affects millions of women and their families all over the world. And so learning about betrayal trauma has been really a blessing for me. So in the center of a person who is dealing with betrayal trauma, the addict is also in her center. So you have a marriage where the addict is in their own center and the addict's in the spouse's center. And it causes discord within that person who's dealing with betrayal trauma. And these are some of the behaviors that show up: angry, depressed, confused, withdrawn, all those things. And then it talks about what happens when a spouse can get into recovery. And then it goes on to talk about what happens in a marriage, an unhealthy marriage, a healthy marriage, and then also a family. So as I was thinking about sharing this, I just felt like one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that oftentimes, in my case, for example, I didn't know that my husband had an addiction. I really did start to think, this is just, we've been married for almost 10 years, this is just what happens, you kind of just drift apart and life's crazy and we're busy, and I did not realize what was going on. And so, and I know there are many women out there who, and this might not be your issue. This might not be it for you, but there are a lot of things that we can do, and there are a lot of things that we can't do. So I felt like focusing on what I can do to create a healthy marriage where I can work together with my husband. The only thing I can really focus on is my relationship with God, putting God into my center and trusting that He will tell me what needs to happen, He will lead me, He will guide me, He will help me work through my frustrations and all of those things. When my husband and I are both in a healthy place, this marriage right here, this actually can happen. And I'm like, it doesn't happen all the time, this little circle right here. I was just talking with my husband actually, like before Bergen asked me to do this, about this triangle. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, where it's like God's at the top and then the husband and wife are at. I remember sitting in classes before and hearing people say that, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I don't even know how that affects me. I'm sure I'm doing it. I go to church. I am married. My husband goes to church. I just felt like, well, I don't know what else to do about it. But really, I feel like it starts here. It starts with me being connected with God, and my husband being connected with God. And from that place, we can both come into the marriage and have God guiding both of us. I will say that over the years, it's been about 5.5 years. Over the years, we've had a lot of times where we weren't working together as a couple. We weren't working side by side. There was a lot of discord, a lot of frustration, a lot of things going on. One of the most important things that we both have needed in order to be able to work together is a support group outside of our marriage. So finding healthy people who you can go to and say, this is what I'm going through, do you have any words of wisdom, or can you just even listen? Having a group of people outside for not only me but for my husband as well. For us, it's ended up being our sponsors. from 12-step groups. Oftentimes we call our sponsors when we're having a hard time communicating. I know that doesn't work for everybody, but having someone, you know, even in this group, having a group of friends who are like-minded, who can give you real stories and honest feedback is so valuable. And my husband was never interested in reaching out to people that way. Partly because of his addiction and his hiding. Over the years, he has learned how to open up as well, and that has been key for both of us to be able to work together. So, I have this this postcard. It's a painting that we have. This has become my analogy for a healthy marriage, and it's called "Gently Up the Stream," and I'll pass it around. But it's two people in canoes, and we're in separate canoes there. And they're riding down the river, and they're going in the same direction. Obviously, there's this waterfall here. When this was explained to me, this picture, the idea was, you know, when I got married, I assumed, you know, you get married, you're one, everything's gonna be awesome, we're good, you know, like, and I don't know why, I just assumed that once you got married, you were gonna be one, you'd agree on everything, and everything would be great, and that's totally not the case. And so my analogy for what a healthy marriage looks like had to change. For us now, we talk about, I'm in my boat, and you're in your boat. And we have our own boats, and we're in charge of keeping our own boats intact, right? We have to make sure that there's no holes, there's no leaks. We have to take care of our relationship and with God and make sure that we are whole and healthy on our own. And our spouses have to do the same thing. And then from that point, the goal is that we're both going in the same direction. And so when my husband and I spent years jumping into his boat and like, okay, well, you just need to do this, and you just need to do this, and you need to do that, and then everything will be fine. And he was like, get out. And I was thinking, but I'm helping. This is what we do. We help, right? And it wasn't helpful at all. So I find myself going into a kind of I call it the crazy committee. I go into crazy committee when I am in other people's boats. And so I feel like that's true no matter whose boat we're in. I have a 12-year-old son, and I find myself getting into his boat often. These boats are only made for one. They don't have enough room for two. So if I'm not in my boat is sinking because there's nobody taking care of it. And that boat that I'm in is also sinking because it's not meant for more than one. And that analogy has been really helpful for me. So when I'm feeling crazy, I say to myself, I gotta get in my own boat. And sometimes when things have been really, really tense between my husband and I have verbally said to him out loud, I'm getting out of your boat, I'm getting into mine, I'm gonna repair the damage from the neglect that's been there, and I'm just gonna keep going. And for a while, when I was working really hard to become healthy and he was not interested yet, I would say to him, I'm in my boat and I'm going this way, and you can either come or you can go, but I'm gonna be okay either way because it's me and God. And I had to say that over and over to myself and to him. And there was a point where he said to me, I feel like you're like way over there and I can't get you. And I lovingly got to say, I'm over there. And I would love for you to come. But if you choose not to, that's your choice. And I think that our ability to say that, to lovingly say, I'm here, I'm holding my space, I'm good with God, and I'd love for you to have your company. And if you're not available, I'll be okay, is key. I'm learning how to do that with my kids at this point, and that's really hard. I think it's harder than with your spouse. But it is creating a healthier family as I'm able to say to my kids, these are the rules, this is what we do in our family. I'm going to invite you to go and get good with God and come back, and we're here, this is what we do, and if you want to join us, we're here. And so I am very, very thankful for the trial in my life that has brought me to this place where I can say, I know who I am, I know what God wants for me, I know what peace and serenity feels like, and I know how to get it back when I've lost it. And that I can work side by side with a husband who can now, going from a lifestyle where he objectified not just women, really everyone. I mean, it showed up all over the place as I got more educated about what it looks like. The objectification can't just stop at one thing, it goes everywhere. And so coming from a place where he was objectifying on a regular basis people, watching him make that transition to where God is in his center and he now sees and he values and he serves and he loves others has been a real testament to me of the power of God, that he can change, and that if we're willing, he can show us what needs to happen next.
Thank you so much, Kahi. Thank you for, I'm
that
going to
was
come
what
sit
you were.
close to you so you don't feel alone, and we can stop recording.
A little bit of
So before everybody has to rush off, please just get out your phones really quick.